Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our February Power and Partnership Breakfast by the Paducah Chamber of Commerce. We're broadcasting live at the Commerce Center in our Paducah Bank Community Room with just a very small group here, but we're glad to have one of the largest groups joining us via Zoom that we've had since we started broadcasting our breakfast last July. So thank you to everyone who's joining us via Zoom, via our Facebook page, or Channel 6 WPSD live stream or their Facebook page. We want to thank our sponsors, the NAACP McCracken County Chapter. Thank you so much to them, as well as the McCracken County Community Career Endowment Fund. Both of those sponsors were with us last year, and we're so glad to have them back with us this year. We added an additional sponsor this year. Our speaker sponsor is West Kentucky Community and Technical College. We want to recognize our new members. We always have to start with a few chamber announcements. So we have 3 new members: McKenna Logistics Kentucky, 3 Rivers Machine and Fab, and Home, the Inside Matters. We have 2 ribbon cuttings coming up, including one for our new member, and it's tomorrow at 11 a.m. for Home, the Inside Matters, and it's located downtown at 132 South 3rd Street with their owner, Sir Ken Gray, who's recently relocated back to Paducah. So join us tomorrow, and then next Wednesday at 1:30 on February 10th, we have a ribbon cutting for Broadway Dental Care. They've moved into their brand new location in Midtown, 130 Lone Oak Road, Suite 125. So meet us there with your mask on at 1:30 next Wednesday for that ribbon cutting. I also want to just briefly recognize Leadership Paducah Class 34. Many of them are on this call today with us. Today, we're meeting virtually. It's our healthcare day, so we look forward to hearing more from Baptist Health Paducah and Mercy Health Lourdes, as well as some other speakers. So they are continuing to meet and have a great year, even though we're doing some of it virtually. Now I want to just talk to you briefly about Frankfort. Traditionally, we'd be taking a busload of people there next week, but we're bringing Frankfort to you. So you'll be able to enjoy Frankfort from the comfort of your home or your office next Thursday, February 11th. We'll be hearing from cabinet officials, members of the General Assembly, and advocating on behalf of our community and our community's priority projects. We want to thank our presenting sponsor who's continuing to be with us for this event, Bacon Farmer Workman, Markham Engineering. This year's speakers include opening remarks from Governor Andy Beshear. We will also hear from Secretary Berry with the Arts, Heritage, Cabinet, and Tourism. And we hope to hear from the Department of Transportation Secretary Jim Gray or Deputy Secretary Mike Hancock. We also have a flavorful combination of speakers that day. We have Senate Majority Floor Leader Damon Thayer, Senate Minority Floor Leader Morgan McGarvey, our own House Majority Floor Leader Stephen Rudy, as well as many other speakers joining us to talk about our priorities. Those include infrastructure funding, COVID-19 legal liability protection for our businesses, unemployment insurance modernization, and many other topics of interest. We will have a morning session and an afternoon session. You can join us for all of it, part of it, but we hope that you will be with us for a big part of it that day, next Thursday, February 11th. You will need to pre-register for this to get the Zoom link, so do that at paducahchamber.org. I also want to thank our other sponsors for this event because we couldn't do it if we didn't have our sponsors. CSI, Denton Law Firm, HDR Engineering, Jim Smith Contracting, Swift & Staley, and U.S. Bank. Thank you so much to our sponsors. Now I just want to share a little bit of news about our Paducah Young Professionals. We are happy to announce we have a new sponsor for the Paducah Young Professionals for 2021, Holland Stivers Employer Solutions. They'll be working with our young professionals this year as the lead sponsor, and we welcome them and thank them. And returning as our digital communication sponsor is the Arnold Realty Group, Dawn Winchess Arnold. Dawn has been with us since the beginning with our Paducah Young Professionals to sponsor all of their digital communications. So we very much appreciate Holland Stivers and the Arnold Realty Group. Now I want to tell you about the next event for the Paducah Young Professionals, and we have had great membership stay with us for that. This is a social hour next Thursday, 2 weeks from today, Thursday, February 18th at 5:30 p.m. So we're going to start off with a social hour. Then we'll have a cooking class with Sarah Bradley, and it's sponsored by Roof Brothers Wine and Spirits. Now, I just want to tell you, you do not have to cook. You don't have to like to cook. You don't have to be a chef to enjoy this. Anyone that knows Sarah knows that it's going to be a lot of fun. And she is going to teach us how to make biscuits. You can even pre-order a ready-made biscuit mix to have at your home and make those biscuits later. But you do have to pre-register for this event as well. There is a fee, and with that, you get this gourmet snack box from Freight House. So check it out, paducahchamber.org. Now, it's my honor to introduce the chairman of our board for 2021. He's also the president of West Kentucky Community and Technical College, Dr. Anton Reese. Dr. Reese.
Thank you, Sandra, or should I say President Wilson, or should I say Chair of the Chamber Executive Committee, or should I say one of 50 most notable women of influence in business and politics. Congratulations to you, my friend. February is also a special month that we share birthdays, mine on the 13th and you're on the 14th. So enough of Sandra for this morning. Welcome everyone to our February breakfast, and I absolutely bring greetings on behalf of the 2001 Paducah Chamber Board. As you know, the Paducah Area Chamber is well known for our advocacy efforts, and we hosted a great DC flyback in October for our federal issues. And as Sandra said, now it's time for us to focus on our state issues. We have a great lineup for the February 11th event, as mentioned, and I urge all of you to please register to attend and to learn more about what's going on here locally and the impact for our entire state. This is the second year for the NAACP McCracken County Chapter and the McCracken County Community Career Endowment Fund to be the sponsor for the February breakfast. Of course, the timing is great with it being Black History Month. Immediately after the breakfast last year, they both stated they wanted to continue their sponsorship for 2021. Of course, COVID hit and so much has happened across our country since then. I would like, by the way, a shout out, as Sandra mentioned, there's a great turnout today. Definitely also want to recognize many of the Black Greek organizations who did a great job of spreading the word. So I definitely want to thank the Deltas and the AKAs and the Kappas and the Sigmas, the Alphas and the Qs for promoting this event as we celebrate Black History Month. Black History Month was founded in 1926 by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He was very intentional and concerned that the contributions of African Americans were not well known and or recorded in history. So in 1926, he started out combining basically a series of volumes capturing our history. It later on then extended in 1976 by President Ford as celebrated nationally as Black History Month. And so that's the genesis behind and the importance of Black History Month. I'm also reminded by the late civil rights leader, Jose Williams, who also said he or she that is ignorant of their history is destined to repeat it. So it is important that we stay attuned and abreast and engaged and knowledgeable about our history. Here at the local level, about a year or so ago, I received a diploma from a student of the president then, Dr. D.H. Anderson, who founded West Kentucky Vocational School. So we have that in our archives, and this week, J.W. Clary sent me a very, very powerful and moving letter. It was Curly Brown Jr. Congratulating him as the first graduate of what was then known as Paducah Junior College in 1955, as examples of things happening locally. So it is important that we fully embrace and understand our history, and certainly our speaker, who will be introducing a little later on, Brent Leggs, he will certainly expound and raise the awareness about the importance of preservation of history. But I really want to pause now, though, to speak to you from the heart as the chair of the Chamber for 2021. As many of you know, this is my second tour of duty here in Paducah. A lot of my work over the past 30 years has been revolved deeply with diversity and student success. Right? That's the core of what I rise every day, trying to ensure that we are inclusive and that we're getting basically access for all to be educated and be enriched, giving back to our community. You know, if I do a quick assessment of where we are now in 2021 by way of our diversity equity scorecard, we've made some gains over 30 years, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So one of my challenges this morning to all of our leaders, business, education, civic individuals, is to be courageous, let us step up, and help bridge the equity gap. Paducah is about 25% specifically African American. You add in additional small diverse groups, we are one of the most diverse cities in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That's a great opportunity. It is also powerful for economic development and being competitive, because oftentimes many firms, businesses and industries look at the diversity and the work readiness of all of its citizens in a given area. I have two goals as Chair 2021 along that line, which is one, definitely want to get more diverse businesses involved and engaged in your chamber. This is our chamber for all of us. My team at the college, headed up by Kevin O'Neill, is fine-tuning some collaborations that we plan on doing with the chamber to revolve around workforce training and chamber membership. Second, I'm forming and I've began outreach to some key representatives from the African American, Hispanic, and other communities to serve as an advisory group to me as chair of the chamber. It gives me great input to get a better understanding of some of the nuances, challenges, and opportunities, and at the same time, basically help us to recruit more diverse businesses and startups here in Paducah as well. The bottom line is, as I see it, we have a tremendous opportunity. We have a 5-star chamber, a 5-time top 10 college, incredible leaders like all of you out there. Let us make Paducah be the hub and the haven for small business, because small business is indeed big business. It is now my pleasure to introduce our February Power and Partnership Breakfast sponsors, the McCracken County chapter of the NAACP and McCracken County Community Career Endowment. Speaking for those organizations are Tony Copeland and Corbin Snarden. First, Tony Copeland would come to share brief remarks from the McCracken County Community Career Endowment.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Copeland. I am a board member of the McCracken County Community Career Endowment Incorporation. We are honored to serve as co-sponsors with the Paducah McCracken NAACP branch and the Western Kentucky Community and Technical College for the event today. The McCracken County Community Career Endowment was created after the late Fred Paxton and his wife, Peggy Paxton, who donated $1 million to in the place of the endowment fund administered by the Community Foundation of West Kentucky in December 2005. The endowment was established to assist in developing a first-class vision of workforce diversity for the Paducah McCracken County community. We are a tax-exempt 501c3 organization incorporated on January 31st, 2006 in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Our mission is to improve the diversity of the community's workforce by developing and conducting activities designed to increase employment and educational opportunities for Afro-Americans in the Paducah McCracken County. We continue to strive to improve the economic issues of unemployed and underemployed workers in our community by working in partnership with area businesses, employment agencies, educational and training institutions to assist our residents in acquiring and maintaining suitable employment. Our mission includes the provisions and promotion of workforce diversity and improvement of our community by assisting low-income and underemployed individuals obtaining gainful employment. We continue to encourage furtherance of education, development of occupational skills, and improvement of job readiness status. We also provide intervention services that promote success in educational and career pursuits by partnering with several school mentoring programs. We are financially assisting 5 during this current school year. We plan on presenting about $25,000 in educational assistance in April of this year to about 25 students. Including this year's presentation, the endowment would have donated direct educational assistance to at least about 300 students since 2006. This has been accomplished only with the assistance of partnerships such as yourself out there and with area businesses and organizations over the past several years. It is a blessing to know that a visionary like the Paxtons had several years ago to endow $1 million and made sure that it was worthwhile in this community. Donations can be mailed to the McCracken County Community Career Endowment Incorporation at 300 South 3rd Street in Paducah, Kentucky, 42003. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this morning for this chamber breakfast. At the NAACP, we are very proud to sponsor this month's February breakfast, and celebrating Black History Month. The NAACP is an organization that is dedicated to the equality of rights of all persons and ending race-based discrimination in all of its forms. The previous year has taught us that there has been a lot of tension and a lot of angst in the country. We recognize that there are a lot of things that need to be done, and here in Paducah, we are trying to do that as well. So in the past year, we have made several partnerships and begun conversations and advocacy efforts to make sure that we are ending race-based discrimination here in McCracken County, and to ensure that local businesses, local schools, local communities are actually progressing towards making it a safe environment for all people and making sure that all citizens are treated equally. We are so pleased and so thankful that we have great membership and great people who support us in many of our efforts. Recently, we've been able to partner with several local businesses in providing over $10,000 in scholarships for local students. Education is a very primary factor of our of our organization, and we are very proud to support those students in partnership with several major businesses here in town. We would also like to encourage you that if you are interested in making a difference and if you are interested in continuing the fight against race-based discrimination, to become a member of the NAACP. It is very simple and very easy to do. You can actually go to our website at paducahnaacp.com and just click the join link to become a member. Membership is only $30 a year, but maybe you just want to make a donation. We accept those as well, and you can do that on our website as well. We want to certainly thank Sandra Wilson and Dr. Reese of the Chamber for allowing us to be able to be sponsors this year, and we look so much forward to hearing from one of our very own locals, Brent Leggs, as he presents the speaker remarks today. Thank you all on behalf of the Paducah-McCracken County NAACP.
Thank you so much, Tony and Corbin. Two great organizations. The NAACP has a deep, long, and rich history. As JW would probably want me to mention, it is the nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization. Certainly in the McCracken County Endowment, as you've heard, the incredible vision of Fred and Peggy Paxton, and we're very thankful for their support, and again, a two-time sponsor of this breakfast. Oh, while I'm doing shout outs, how about West Kentucky Community Technical College family? I want to be able to say greetings on behalf of the team. Let me make a shameless plug, but intentionally. We do also have a variety of Black History Month events that you can certainly log on to our website, West Kentucky, and or through our Facebook, social media. We have an eclectic group who've put together a really, I think, a really intriguing sort of approach to Black History Month this year. Some of you may have saw featured this week regarding our Kitchens Cafe and recognizing and honoring African-American chefs, their contributions to history. We will be having some spoken word. Snap Hawkins and Veretta Hurt will be doing a monologue. We'll definitely be having some interactive panels too with civil rights leaders here in Paducah, because one of the things, and I'm sure Brent may touch on this, is that part of our deep legacy is been passed on through oral history. The challenge, of course, is if you don't capture or record it, then you lose that. So there'll be an interactive panel discussing the importance and the history of Paducah orally. We also if you recall, in the past 2 years, we typically kick Black History Month activities off in Paducah, where our art professors and students showcase African American leaders downtown. This year, they're putting together a coloring book, which would include a composition and their usually artistic spin, celebrating again the rich heritage of Black history. So a lot of activities. Definitely want to encourage everyone to, again, plug in, lean in. I'm a big believer that the beauty and power of history, it bridges the gaps that are referenced by way of equity, but it takes intentionality, lean in a little more, prick the curiosity, and then continue to research your culture. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. So today, we are pleased to have Brent Legs, the Executive Director of the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund for the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The Action Fund promotes the role of cultural preservation in telling the nation's full history and empowers activists, entrepreneurs, artists, and civic leaders to advocate on behalf of African American historic places. Brent is a Harvard University Loeb Fellow and a national leader in the U.S. preservation movement. Over the past decade, he has developed the Northeast African American Historic Places Outreach Program to build a regional movement of preservation leaders saving important landmarks in African American history. Many of you may know Brent as he is a Paducah native and a graduate of Paducah Tillman High School. He became the first African American to complete the University of Kentucky's graduate program in historic preservation, which is part of the School of Architecture. He has taught at Harvard University, the University of Pennsylvania, and Boston Architectural College. And he is an assistant clinical professor at the University of Maryland's graduate program in historic preservation. Let me just pause there for a second and repeat. A Paducah native who is lecturing at the top Ivy League schools across this country is a powerful message to the youth and adults in our area as to what's possible. A classic example of Paducah punching above its weight. It now gives me great privilege to welcome virtually Brent Legs. Brent.
Dr. Reese, I want to thank you for that introduction. And I just want to give a shout out back to you, because when I think about the importance of your educational leadership, I think about Dr. Dennis Anderson and his wife, Artelia, who in 1909 would construct and found West Kentucky Industrial College. So you stand on the shoulders of legends, and I admire the work that you do. So good morning, Paducah. I am honored to spend this time with you. I'm honored to be with this beautiful community that I call home. So happy Black History Month. I am going to share my screen and my PowerPoint presentation for today. So I thought I would start with the why. So I graduated from the MBA program at the University of Kentucky. I was soul searching for my professional identity. And I discovered a furniture making program in the School of Architecture at UK. I would walk inside, have a random 15-minute conversation with Dr. Dennis Domer, who was the chair of the graduate program in historic preservation. Literally, after this random conversation, I took a chance. 2 months later, I was enrolled in grad school learning about architectural history, iconic columns, and questioning whether or not I made the right decision. But thankfully, I was asked to conduct the statewide inventory of historic Rosenwald schools in my home state of Kentucky. This is a classic example of a Rosenwald school. Rosenwald Schools was born in the mind of legendary educator and activist Booker T. Washington while at Tuskegee University. He would partner with Jewish philanthropist, and the second president of Sears and Roebuck, Julius Rosenwald. Together, they would help to fund the construction of over 5,000 schools in 15 southern states. The original designer was none other than architect Robert Taylor, the first African-American graduate of MIT. The landscape designer was none other than Dr. George Washington Carver. During this 1.5-year-long research project, I would learn that my mom and dad attended Rosenwald schools in central Kentucky. Now, I had read Up From Slavery, and Booker T. Washington was already iconic in my life for his accomplishments in building Tuskegee University. But to learn that he would create a social movement in response to a crisis in Black education that we know today as Rosenwald schools just blew my mind. I had a personal connection to this history, and I began to understand the quiet power of preservation. So when I toured a Rosenwald school, I could have this multi-sensory experience with the physical evidence of our past. I could hear the creaking floorboards as I walked inside that old school. I could see the sunlight shining through broken window panes. I could smell the decay. But I started to realize that there was a sixth sense to preservation, a transcendent and spiritual quality. Preservation brought the past and present together unlike any other form of history. It would make Rosenwald and Washington's lives once lived real. And for me, that was power. So when I conducted my research, I learned that there were 158 Rosenwald schools built in Kentucky, and 41 were still standing. When I discovered the remaining school that was pretty much a ruin, it actually was in Paducah, Kentucky. There were 4 Rosenwald schools in McCracken County, one right off of Poole Road in Paducah, and it's the Woodland School. And these former students would mark space and memorialize Paducah's national story. This is Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald. I love this quote by Booker T. Washington because it really speaks to our community's 4th century struggle for freedom through education and the promise and meaning of a schoolhouse and the importance of school, only second to the Black church in helping to form community. Now, for the young folks out there listening, I want to start with this quote. Cultural icon Beyonce, on her visual album Lemonade, said, "The past and future merge to meet us here." Keep this in the back of your mind. Our community continues to fight against the legacies of slavery. We fight against cultural inequity. This building right here is the home of President George Washington. More than 150 years ago, the Mount Vernon Ladies Association would birth the U.S. preservation movement in their national campaign to protect this house and to restore it. And they would turn it into a house museum. Fast forward to today, our National Inventory of Historic Places, which is our National Register of Historic Places, Of the nearly 100,000 sites listed across the United States, only 2%, let me say that again, only 2% reflects the Black experience in America. We are fighting for recognition and validation of our contributions. We continue to fight against issues such as urban renewal and erasure that has decimated African American residential and commercial neighborhoods all across the United States. This neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina, formerly known as Brooklyn, no longer exists. You can imagine the loss of Black capital and the Black economy because of issues such as urban renewal and erasure. If you travel to many urban environments and cities, you will see rows of abandoned, vacant, underutilized historic buildings that appear to exist without history and meaning. Because of systemic racism and the issues of redlining and disinvestment, we have a historic built environment that looks like this. We fight against racial terrorism. This is Mother Emanuel in Charleston, South Carolina. 5 years ago, a white nationalist would walk inside of this church and assassinate 9 Black church members inside of a sacred space like this. I'm proud that we have invested $150,000 to help them restore their historic church sanctuary. But this is the reality of the Black community. We fight against vandalism and disrespect. This building that you see here, it's called the African Meeting House, is located on Nantucket, Massachusetts. It is the second oldest standing Black church building in the United States. The words spray painted on this building express how some members of our society communicate their cultural values. And this building right here is called the Decatur House in Washington, D.C. An unnamed protester during the Black Lives Matter protest movement in the summer of 2020 would spray paint these words on the side of Decatur House, which says, "Why do we have to keep telling you Black Lives Matter?" Inside of this space is where African Americans were formerly held in bondage. It sits in the shadows of the White House, and our work is to respond to this question. So we fight for justice. So preservation of Black history is a path for equity, and it is a blueprint for a social justice movement. I have the good fortune of leading the largest preservation campaign ever undertaken on behalf of African American historic places. $25 million campaign called the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund. It was created in the aftermath of Charlottesville. We all remember this moment in 2017 where a white nationalist wearing khaki pants, polo shirts, holding tiki torches would rally around a Thomas Jefferson sculpture on the campus of University of Virginia, advocating for a modern form of Jim Crow. We knew that this did not reflect our national values, and we wanted to demonstrate the power of preservation to support social innovation and to respond to a cultural crisis. Thus, the Action Forum was born. This is our mission. It's about expanding the American story, telling the full history, confronting the miseducation of Americans. It is a force for enacting positive social change. We wanted to create a new form of partnership and community. This is a 20-member board of the Action Fund, co-chaired by Darren Walker, who is the president of the Ford Foundation, and actor and director, Miss Felicia Rashad. And I am proud that Dr. Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham, who is the first African-American to chair the history department at Harvard University, and she is currently the national president of the Association for the Study of African-American Life and History, which is the organization founded by Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history. So now I just want to talk about the importance of preserving our collective memory. The way that we're doing this through the Action Fund is to make equitable investment in Black communities to help preserve Black cultural assets. But I wanted to highlight these statistics because it affirms that African American historic places have been underfunded and undervalued. Almost 2,400 proposals since 2018 requesting almost $250 million. Thus far, we've invested $4.3 million in 65 preservation projects like the Alice and John Coltrane home that's in New York. This is where John composed one of his greatest masterpieces, A Love Supreme. Is where Alice would record her first 5 albums in their basement studio. We wanted to elevate the significance of this place. We wanted to highlight the importance of equitable interpretation by uplifting the contributions of Black women in jazz. But also we want to tell the story of Black love, Black romantic love and family. We're helping to preserve places and tell stories associated to historic Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is the 100th anniversary of the largest racial massacre in the United States. Vernon AME Church is the only edifice and artifact that remained after that massacre. We invested $150,000 to help them to restore their historic stained glass windows that were paid for in the rebuilding of this church 99 years ago. And so we honor the resilience of this Black community, but we also are balancing the public memory's understanding of this history. It's just not about the violence. It's also about a once thriving and prosperous Black community that Booker T. Washington called the Negro Wall Street. Or places like the home of playwright August Wilson. You probably have seen the movie Fences that was filmed in this historic neighborhood called the Hill District in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We invested in the creation of a new play that would engage the community and maximize the landscape to be able to tell August Wilson's story. Now I want to talk about sites of activism, achievement, and community. Paducah's own Hotel Metropolitan. It is such an overlooked yet remarkable story. In 1908, 2 Black women owned and operated Hotel Metropolitan. They were Maggie M. Steed and Mamie Burge-Bridge Guys. They owned and operated this until 1996. Some of the notable legends and artists and athletes that stayed here included Thurgood Marshall, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Satchel Paige, and Tina Turner. Hotel Metropolitan has a story to tell, a story about the power of Black female entrepreneurs. A story about the Black arts and Renaissance story of Paducah. It is important that we rally around this site and ensure its long-term stewardship and sustainability. Thank you, Betty Dobson and others, for protecting this irreplaceable history. One of my favorite projects is to help protect in perpetuity the home of Madam C.J. Walker, called Villa Lawaro. In Irvington, New York, stands this elegant historic residence that embodies the optimism and perseverance of American entrepreneurship. Madam Walker would create a formula to help African American women's hair grow and be healthy. She would amass a fortune and become America's first self-made female millionaire. Not Black female, but America's first self-made female millionaire. She would collaborate with architect Vertner Tandy, who was born in Lexington, Kentucky. He would become the first licensed Black architect in the state of New York. And in 1918, she would move into her home, Villa Lawaro. She integrated the most expensive zip code in the United States, built this house on the same street as J. Gould Lyndhurst, and 3 miles from the Rockefeller estate called Keiket. We celebrate Madam Walker for her work to uplift and empower Black women. You probably haven't heard of A.G. Gaston or this motel. I have to say that I hadn't heard about it until the National Museum of African American History and Culture made me aware of an impending threat that was to demolish half of the motel. This was in 2015. I would learn that A.G. Gaston was the most successful Black entrepreneur during the period of segregation in all of Alabama. He would construct in 1954 the first Black-owned motel. It was modeled after the Howard Johnsons and Holiday Inns of the time in this mid-century modern architecture. But I bet he could not foresee that in the spring of 1963, the American Civil Rights Movement would descend on this motel. They would plan and implement the Birmingham campaign known as Project C, the mass youth demonstration protest movement. This picture is from May 10th, 1963, where Dr. King, Reverend Shuttlesworth, and Reverend Abernathy held a truce with white business leaders. This moment would break the back of segregation across the South, was a catalyst for the 1964 civil rights legislation, but it represents the power of ordinary Black citizens and our heroes who were armed only with their truth in a spiritual battle against immorality. Black men, women, and children would test and affirm the timeless idea that purposeful collective action can change our nation and the world. And then you have places like Claiborne Temple in Memphis, Tennessee. Inside of this historic site is where the I Am Man posters were designed and pressed. But this church represents an elevation within the civil rights movement and the linking between political activism and economic justice. From the steps of this church in 1968 is where Dr. King would lead 15,000 protesters as part of the sanitation workers' strike. This happened just before his assassination at the Lorraine Motel. Our fight for political equality and economic justice continues to this day. I wanted to highlight this place because it reminds me of a moment in Paducah's remarkable history. Joe Frazier's Gym in Philadelphia I had the good fortune of working with the community to protect this place in perpetuity. After his first fight with Muhammad Ali, he would have enough money to purchase this building. He owned it and operated his gym for 4 decades. He lost it in foreclosure in 2011, the same year that he passed away. And we were activated because the new owner put up scaffolding to remove his name that was etched in the front facade. We thought that that was an injustice and we had to eliminate that preservation threat. But the local and national connection here is Joe Frazier just wasn't a sports icon. He was a surrogate father to many Black children on the west side of Philadelphia. His gym was a safe haven for Black youth. I'm sure this reminds you of someone that we love and admire, known as Mr. Oscar Cross, and the importance of the Oscar Cross Girls and Boys Club in Paducah, Kentucky. Now I want to highlight the importance of preserving landscapes and sites of our collective memory. There's a place called Shockoe Bottom in Richmond, Virginia, second largest slaveholding site in the United States for more than 35 years. If you toured it today, it's nothing more than concrete and parking lots and a pristine archaeological site. So the big question is, how do you memorialize the Black experience when the physical history is no longer visible? This is the community's vision for creating a 9-acre memorial park that intersects education, commemoration, and economic development. There are places in Paducah, Kentucky, where this linking between economic development and preservation has created a rebirth of our Main Street. Inside of the Columbia Theater, it's where I saw my first movie, Star Wars. At that time, I had no idea that this theater had a story to tell, a story about segregation in Paducah. Our community would enter on the side of the building, walk up steps, and could only sit in the balcony. I wonder, how will Paducah interpret this part of our collective story? Who knew that we had a legend in our history? Dr. William Stewart Nelson. What I think is remarkable about Stewart Nelson Park, on August 8th, 1936, in celebration of emancipation, 10,000 Black residents would come together inside this park and celebrate the opening of a social and recreational space for our community. Wow. Who knew that Dr. Nelson was the first president of 2 historically Black colleges and university, Shaw University and Dillard University. He was a captain in the Army. And he would consult with Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He marched on Bloody Sunday from Selma to Montgomery. The list goes on about his contributions in the civil rights movement and his support of nonviolence protests. We honor the memory of Dr. William Stewart Nelson. And we look forward to seeing the ways that this community will bring life to commemorating and interpreting the many layers of history that sit in Stewart Nelson Park. So I'm proud to support the preservation of HBCUs across the United States. We are committed to elevating their contribution, helping them to preserve the 105 historic campuses and assets that tells a remarkable story about Black excellence, activism, achievement, and so much more. There's a connection between this work and honoring Dr. Stuart Nelson. So as I conclude, I just want to kind of end with this quote about the past and the present merged to meet us here. Black history is complex and beautiful. We have so much to celebrate. And we know that Black history is American history. That this month and all year long, that we use the power of this history to remind our community of our potential. We uplift our struggle and all that we have overcome. But we also use this history to educate all Americans about our full contribution to this society, how we have shaped American democracy and ideals, how we have been the caretakers of America's soul and consciousness, how we have contributed to innovation and science and business. We have shaped American culture, sports, life over the last 4 centuries. We have a wonderful history. And this history is here to inspire us for greater achievements. This is the words of Carter G. Woodson. So as I close, I just want to take this moment to challenge my fellow Paducahans. In honor of Black History Month and Paducah's irreplaceable American history, I want to make a personal $500 donation to the Oscar Cross Boys and Girls Club and Historic Hotel Metropolitan in the memory of Mr. Oscar Cross and Miss Maggie Steed and Miss Mamie Guys. And I encourage you to do the same thing at a level that's comfortable for you. And the reason I challenge this today, it is this community's social responsibility to preserve our shared history and collective memory. We must protect, care for, interpret, steward, and tell our story. Not just for the short term, but to ensure our immortality and permanence. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brent, before you leave, I just want to say thank you. You're a proud son of Paducah. I know your dad, James Leggs, still lives here, and I always have to give a shout out to your mother, the late Thelma Leggs. And for those in Paducah who may be walking around today and think, well, there's Brent Leggs. I saw him this morning at the chamber breakfast. What a coincidence. No, he's in D.C., but he has a twin brother, Kent Leggs, who lives here in Paducah. And I just want to share, I'm glad you showed some of the sites in Paducah. When we were, as the Leadership Paducah class, touring the Columbia Theater in October, is when I found out about you. And I was talking to Jeff Cantor, who was touring the site for us with our class, and he mentioned you to me, and I thought, how in the world have I missed the big deal of knowing Brent Leggs? So we immediately added you to our DC flyback as a speaker and knew then that we wanted to have you back with us in Paducah today. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for those contributions, and thank you for those messages. We're very, very appreciative of you and look forward to working with you in the future.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, we're just going to wrap up a little bit. I want to say thank you to our speaker sponsor, WKCTC, who allowed us to have Brent Leggs today, but our breakfast sponsors who spoke up, as Dr. Reese said, last year right after that breakfast. We had a packed house, about 375, 400 people with the McCracken County chapter of the NAACP. Thank you, J.W. Clary and Tony for being here today, Tony Copeland, and Corbin Snarden, and then from the McCracken County Community Career Endowment, Don Mitchell and Tony Copeland, who represented them today. Thank you for your sponsorship. We really appreciate the partnership that we have with you. We do have some door prizes. If a couple of you guys, there are some people here with me want to come up, and so we can draw for those. We have 3 gift cards from Big Ed's Restaurant to give away. Reach down, way down in there, Tony. Okay. Okay. We will mail these to our recipients, and you must register through Zoom to be eligible for door prizes. We have Jim Sigler, Ida Hetty, and Jan Keene. So we'll mail those door prizes to you from Big Ed's. I just want to say our annual meeting, we are still hoping, we didn't get to have it in January, it should have been last Friday night. We tentatively are holding the date of July 15th for that. We'll see how the vaccinations are going and see if we can have it then and be in person. But we're making big plans. Please register for the Frankfurt Forum. It's important that we have people in our community that know what's going on in Frankfurt. We want you to hear from these great speakers, and look forward to having you register at paducahchamber.org. We'll be back on March 4th with our next breakfast, sponsored by Lundberg Medical Imaging. And our featured speaker for that is Matt Tackett. He's with the Kentucky Association for Economic Development, and he has some great new tools that we'll be rolling out that will be of interest, especially to small businesses. So he plans to share that with us and share it so we can share it with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your support of the Paducah Chamber, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you.